Right, Doug, let's talk about Arcam, AVR21. You've been looking at
Yeah,
that. What did you think?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. So the AVR21's obviously part of Arcam's refreshed range of AVRs and processors. Um, it looks exactly the same as the old range. So it has that sort of grey silver finish, that steel chassis. But the big change for this generation is the inclusion of HDMI 2.1. And it's fully featured HDMI 2.1. So you get 8K 60 Hertz, 4K 120, Dolby Vision, HDR 10 plus, HDR10, HLG, VRR, QMS, QFT, etc. The full gamut. So it's quite a mouthful, but the basic proposition is that it can sort of sit at the center of your gaming and home cinema system very happily. It's 7 powered channels, and they're 90 watts per channel, all channels driven. I think they're 125 watts per channel if you only have 2 channels driven. Which puts it in the middle of the bunch from the new AVR. So there's the AVR11 just below, which is 60 watts per channel, I think. That will only decode 12 channels, whereas the Arcam
Only.
the Arcam does, the AVR21 does 16. So that could, if you couple it with other power amplifiers, it can be the center of a 16 channel home cinema system. The one above, the AVR31, is broadly identical, although it has Arcam's Class G amps in there with a bit more power. So they're 100 watts per channel, all channels driven, I think. Also, very comprehensive streaming options. So if you have Apple AirPlay, Google Music, Google Chromecast, Spotify Connect, Tidal Connect, that will all work with it. It's also Roon ready. So if you're a Roon user, it will work with that. I think it will only play Roon in stereo, whereas some manufacturers you can actually do multi-channel audio via Roon, but I think this is just Roon in stereo. It's also got aptX HD, so if you want to connect to it Bluetooth, you can use that.
Doug, one of our long-term users and subscribers has asked the question that I think a lot of people are probably wanting to ask about this product, given the manufacturer. Has this behaved itself? Has it done all the things it's supposed to?
Yes. I was very pleasantly surprised actually, because I owned the AV40 from the last generation very, very briefly, because it was riddled with bugs on release, and I'd steeled myself ready for the same with this, but I didn't encounter any bugs whatsoever, which was a real pleasant surprise.
Well done, Arcam.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's the same kind of basic architecture underpinning it, right? So it's the same web UI and presumably the same sort of software. So presumably by the time they've got to this generation, they've refined quite a lot of that, and that's why they've had a bug-free release, whereas the first iteration, a lot of the bugs were with the software. So they clearly needed to iron those out over time. So you're really seeing a sort of a generation's worth of updates by the time we get to this generation.
Yeah, I reviewed the AV40, and when it first turned up, it was a mess. The thing was, if it had worked properly, it was an ingenious way of doing it. It's just nothing worked, and even trying to get just a basic streaming service up and running on it was absolute nightmare. But like you say, I mean, by the time it left, it was getting better. It had a couple of firmware updates by then, and it was starting to get a bit more stable. So it's good to hear that they've finally managed to get it.
Yeah, they've nailed it. And the other surprise for me was Direct, I never know how to pronounce it, worked flawlessly as well. And I've used that with a number of AVRs and processors now, and there's normally some sort of hiccup with finding the AVR on the network or it cutting out during the calibration, what have you. There's normally some sort of problem. Absolute worked perfectly. with the Arcam.
Good.
Yeah,
So
I think Derek's done a lot of work there as well. I mean, Jules, you do a lot of these calibrations as well. They've done a lot of work making it more user friendly, haven't they? And it working out of the box a lot better than it used to.
That was my biggest brown trouser moment testing stuff here for you guys, was with the SA30 stereo amplifier, because that had a moment running with the Focal Cantor under test, and obviously the tweeters for that are not inconsequentially expensive, and it put everything it had to give through them for one brief and invigorating moment. So that's quite relief. It's a good thing to hear that that's sort of squared away as well. So
excellent. So I mean, the reviews on the site, Doug. So just overall, how did you find it?
I thought it was fantastic. I have very little to criticize, actually. I mean, Derek produces fantastic sound. I actually put up some measurements with the review so you can see the difference it made, and it took down a 15 dB bump at one point, which is huge, right? That made a big difference to the sound quality, and that really it's cliche to say lifts a veil from the sound, but I really did. I mean, that 15 dB bump is going to muddy the sound. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah, remember, if you use the words insight, or even my wife heard the difference, you get instantly fired. It's in our contract.
So, I'll flag the cliches when I roll them out. But no, I thought it was fantastic, and like I said, the big surprise for me was the bug-free, rock solid performance. Couple of criticisms: the web UI is looking a bit dated now. They really need to sort of up their game there. Vis-a-vis the competition, they're kind of lagging behind. Also, the quality of the microphone was not as good as Anthem. Anthem have a really beautiful microphone and tripod that they give you for free, whereas this is a fairly cheap plastic mic. But I think a lot of the sort of more serious enthusiast users would use it with a U mic or some other custom mic.
Yeah, excellent. Well, like I say, review is on the site, so if you're interested in finding out a little bit more, head to the homepage. It's still there. It will be there for a little while yet. So go and read Doug's review on that one. Thank you very much, Doug.